students, welcome to Vagdevi Vikas PU Science College Mudgolo online classes. In our previous class we already had seen there happened a murder in the prince's domains and the murderer was sentenced. The death sentence, which means his head had to be cut off. But there had arisen a hitch in the matter, that was the kingdom neither had the guilty or an executioner to cut off the head of the criminals. So the minister, they decided to send an inquiry to the French government, and the French government charged 16,000 francs, which was again too dear. Now you can understand the real value of the title too dear. 16,000 francs was too expensive for the Prince of Monaco to get a guillotine or an executioner. And again they considered the matter and decided to send the same inquiry to Italy king, and got the prompt reply from the king of Italy. He agreed to send an executioner and a machine, and he charged 12,000 francs, which again became what? Too dear to the prince. Because in his kingdom he had only 7,000 men. If he had to collect 16,000 francs or 12,000 francs, he again had to lay more than 2 francs or less than 2 francs tax for his inhabitants. So it again became too dear for the Prince of Monaco. So again the council was called, discussed, and decided to ask a soldier to cut off the criminal's head with a homely fashion. General went and asked the soldiers, but the soldiers denied. They said they have not taught to be killed a criminal. Thereafter, what happens? Let us see in today's class. Let us continue the lesson. What was to be done? Now, to solve the problem of criminals, what had to be done? Let us see what they think, what they do. Again, the ministers considered and reconsidered. Again, the ministers thought and thought. They assembled a commission and a committee and a subcommittee. And at last they decided that the best thing would be to alter the death sentence to one of imprisonment for life. Both the sentences are very important, will be asked for 1 mark. Now, again, the ministers assembled, made a committee, made a commission, made subcommittee, and at last, with a lot of discussions, they decided to change. They decided to change. Which sentence to which sentence? Death sentence of the criminal. Death sentence of the criminal to what? To one of imprisonment. I hope you know the meaning of imprisonment. ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ ನಾವು? imprisonment for life ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಜೀವಾವಧಿ ಶಿಕ್ಷೆ. ಗಲ್ಲು ಶಿಕ್ಷೆಯನ್ನ ಬದಲಾಯಿಸಿ ಅವರು ಆ ಕ್ರಿಮಿನಲ್ಗೆ ಏನ್ ಕೊಡ್ಬೇಕಂತ ಡಿಸಿಷನ್ ತಗೊಂಡ್ರು? ಜೀವಾವಧಿ ಶಿಕ್ಷೆಯನ್ನ ಕೊಡ್ಬೇಕಂತ in the committee and subcommittee the ministers came to the conclusion. This would enable the prince to show his mercy and it would come cheaper. The ministers thought that it would also help the prince to gain fame as it's a kind of mercy which he had shown to the criminal. ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ರಾಜನಿಗೂ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಹೆಸರು ಬರುತ್ತೆ, ಇಲ್ಲಪ್ಪ ಮತ್ತು ಗಲ್ಲು ಶಿಕ್ಷೆಯನ್ನ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅವನು ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ದ, ಜೀವಾವಧಿ ಶಿಕ್ಷೆಯನ್ನ ಕೊಟ್ಟ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಅವನಿಗೂ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಹೆಸರು ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ನಮ್ಮ ರಾಜನಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಿದೆ, ಮರ್ಸಿ. ಮರ್ಸಿ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ಕೈಂಡ್ನೆಸ್, ದಯೆ ಅನ್ನೋದಿದೆ. They thought and they also decided that the thing would come somehow cheaper than of 16,000 francs and 12,000 francs. Now in next paragraph, let us see what it is explained. The prince agreed to this. They laid the same thing before the king, and the kinglet of Monaco agreed what his ministers they had suggested, and so the matter was arranged. So somehow the matter was arranged. The only hitch now was that there was no suitable reason for a man sentenced for life. Again there had one more hitch. We already know the meaning of what hitch, which is the problem. Somehow they arranged the matter of criminals, but after that arrangement they had again got a problem, and that problem was there was no suitable reason for a man sentenced for life. Reason ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಜೈಲು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ ನಾವು, ಸೆಲ್. In his kingdom he did not even have a proper cell to be kept. A prisoner who had got life time imprisonment. Next line, let us see what it is given. There was a small lockup where people were sometimes kept temporarily, but there was no strong prison fit for permanent use. There was a small lockup in which the people were kept temporarily. There was not a proper lockup which is used for a prisoner who got a sentence of imprisonment for life. However, they managed to find a place that would do, and they put the young fellow there and placed a guard over him. But however, the king and his ministers got a place to throw the criminal in the jail, and after throwing him in the cellar, a temporary locker, they kept a guard over him to be guarded, because the cell was not suitable to be used for permanent use, was a rickety. So a guard was appointed, and the duty of the guards is given in the next paragraph. So now somehow they got a place to be kept the criminal, and they even appointed a guard to look after the criminal. And he also, the guard had to watch the criminal and had also to fetch his food from the palace kitchen. Not in next paragraph. This paragraph only the duty of the guards is given. The duty of the guards is he had to watch the criminal, and he also had to fetch get the food of the criminals from which kitchen? Palace kitchen. See how blessed the criminal was. ಎಷ್ಟರ ನಸೀಬಿರ್ಬೇಕು ನೋಡ್ರಿ ಅವನು. ಅರಮನೆಯ ಅಡುಗೆ ಮನೆಯಿಂದ ಅವನಿಗೆ ಊಟವನ್ನ ಕಳಿಸಲಾಗ್ತಿತ್ತು. ಅದನ್ನು ಯಾರು ತಗೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕಾಗಿತ್ತು? ಅವನಿಗೆ ನೇಮಿಸತಕ್ಕಂತಹ ಕಾವಲುಗಾರ ತಗೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕಾಗಿತ್ತು. This is what the duty of the guards. He had to watch the criminal and had to fetch the food of the criminals from palace kitchen. Now let us see next paragraph what it is. Explain. The prisoner remained there month after month till a year had passed. Now the criminal remained in that temporary locker month after month till 1 year could passed. ಒಂದು ವರ್ಷ ಆಗುತ್ತನ 12 ತಿಂಗಳು ಆ ಕ್ರಿಮಿನಲ್ ಎಲ್ಲಿದ್ದ? ಆ ಒಂದು ಸೆಲ್ಲರ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದ. But when a year had passed, the kinglet, looking over the account of his income and expenditure one day, noticed a new item of expenditure. When a year had passed, the kinglet, looking over the account of his income and expenditure one day, noticed a new item of expenditure. But when 1 year had passed, when the king started glancing over his income and expenditure, he had noticed a new item of expenditure which is added in his annual account. Let us see thereafter what happens. This was for the keep of the criminal. That new item of expenditure was added because of keeping a criminal in the cellar. Nor was it a small item either. It was not even a small item to be ignored. There was a special guard and there was also the man's food. There was a special guard to guard the criminal and the criminal's food of 3 times. ಹೌದು ಬಟ್ ಏನೋ ಸಣ್ಣ ವೆಚ್ಚ ಇರಬಹುದು ಅಂತ ನೆಗ್ಲೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡೋ ಹಾಗೂ ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಯಾಕಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಆ ಒಬ್ಬ ಕ್ರಿಮಿನಲ್ಗೆ, ಅಪರಾಧಿಗೆ ಒಬ್ಬ ಗಾರ್ಡ್ ಇದ್ದ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಎವ್ರಿ ಡೇ 3 ಟೈಮ್ಸ್ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗಿತ್ತು? ಆ ಅಪರಾಧಿಗೆ ಫುಡ್ ಅನ್ನ ಕಳಿಸಬೇಕಾಗಿತ್ತು. ಸೊ ದಿ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಂಡಿಚರ್ ವಾಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ಟು ಬಿ ನೆಗ್ಲೆಕ್ಟೆಡ್. It came to more than 600 francs a year. See, the expenditure which had come to keep the criminal in the locker was 600 francs for a year. ಒಂದು ವರ್ಷಕ್ಕೆ ಆ ಮನುಷ್ಯನಿಗೆ ನೋಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿಕ್ಕೆ 600 francs. The king he needed. And the worst of it was that the fellow was still young and healthy and might live for 50 years. One more worst thing was the fellow who was kept in the cellar was not aged but was still young and healthy and might live for how many years? 50 years. Just imagine what would be the expenses of his for 50 years when 600 francs came to 1 year. Just try to multiply. 5 3s are 6. 5 6 are 30. So 3 zeros. So here, if the fellow lived for 50 years, the king had to bear the expenses of how many francs? 30,000 francs, which became more than 16,000 francs of which government? French government, and 12,000 francs of which government? Italy came. So the matter had become serious now. Let us see what happens in the story. The matter was, when one came to reckon it up, the matter was serious. When a person who could calculate had come, reckon it up, calculate it up. The meaning of reckon is calculate. When a person came for calculation, when he told this calculation to the kinglet, the matter had become very serious. It would never do. So the prince summoned his ministers and said to them, now the king thought that it would not serve him. So he called. He called his ministers and said, let us see what he says. You must find some cheaper way of dealing with this rascal. The king again calls the criminal as what? The rascal. He called his ministers and told them that they somehow have to bring the thing somehow cheaper of the rascal criminals. The present plan is too expensive. He told the ministers that the present plan which they had suggested him was too expensive. I hope you are getting why the writer had kept this title. Too expensive? Too dear. That plan also had become too dear or too expensive for Monaco Kingdom. The ministers met and considered and reconsidered till one of them said, now again the ministers assembled, considered, thought and reconsidered, and again they thought. They remained mum. They were thinking and thinking till one of the ministers could say something. And in the assembly of ministers, one of the ministers, he said, let us see what he said. Gentlemen, in my opinion, we must dismiss the guard. One of the ministers suggested that they must have to dismiss whom? The guard. Let us see what happens there. But then rejoined another minister. The fellow will run away. The other minister, he rejoined the words with the words of the first minister. He said, if the guard would be dismissed, the fellow, the meaning of fellow here refers to the criminal. The criminal would run away. If the guard would be dismissed, obviously the criminal would run away. ಅವನಿಗೆ ಕಾಯ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಯಾರು ಗಾರ್ಡ್ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೇನ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾನಮ್ಮ ಅಪರಾಧಿ ಮೊದಲು ಅದು ಟೆಂಪರರಿ ಲಾಕಪ್ ಇತ್ತು ಹೋದ್ರೆ ಸೆಲ್ಲರ್ ಡೋರ್ ಬೀಳೋ ಹಾಗಿತ್ತು. So he would have run away. So the same suggestion had been suggested by the other minister to the first minister. Let us see what the minister he says. Well said the first speaker. Let him run away and be handed to him. The first speaker, the first minister who suggested to dismiss the guard, he said, let him run away. There won't be any problem if he runs away, he said. Let us be handed to him. The meaning of be handed to is to get free from something. Let us be free from this problem. The first minister or the first speaker, he said. So they reported the same result of their deliberations to the kinglet, and he agreed with them. So the same deliberations, discussions. The same discussions the ministers told to the kinglet, and the kinglet, he also agreed with the ministers. The guard was dismissed, and they waited to see what would happen. Now the guard was being dismissed, and all the ministers very eagerly waited what would have happened. All that happened was that at a dinner time, the criminal came out, and not finding his gun, he went to the prince's kitchen to fetch his own dinner. All that happened was the criminal, not finding his guard to fetch food from him, he himself went to the palace kitchen and fetched food for himself. He took what was given to him, returned to the prison, shut the door on himself, and stayed inside. Instead of running away, the man went to the palace kitchen. See how polite he was in his manners. He took only what was given to him from the palace kitchen. Palace kitchen ಅಂದ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೇನಾ ಮೃಷ್ಟಾನ್ನ ಭೋಜನ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ. ಅವನು ಏನು ಬೇಕಾಗಿತ್ತೆಲ್ಲ ತಗೋಬೋದಾಗಿತ್ತು. He was a polite gentleman, might be. But how he committed a murder, God only has to answer, because the reason in this lesson is not given. So prompt in his manners, he went to the palace kitchen. He took only what he was given and returned to the cellar and closed the door of his cellar on himself and stayed inside the locker. Next day the same thing occurred. Next day also the same thing had happened. He went for his food at the proper time. But as for running away, he did not show the least sign of it. The next day also happened the same thing. At the proper time, he went to take his food, came back to the cellar and stayed inside the cellar. There was no sign of running out from the prison. In criminal. They considered the matter again. What was to be done? The food expenses of his again would become burden for the kingdom. So again the ministers started thinking what to be done with the case of these criminals. Let us see in the next paragraph what it is given. We shall have to tell him straight out, said they, that we do not want to keep him. Now, all the ministers, they thought. So, the ministers, they discussed and decided to tell the criminal straight away that they did not want to keep him. To see what they do. So the minister of justice had him brought before him. So the ministers of justice who had his in charge told him to brought him before him. Why do you not run away? Said the minister. Now the criminal came and stood before the minister who had got his in charge. And the minister asked the criminal, why the criminal had not run away. There is no guard to keep you. The minister also added by saying, there is no guard to keep the criminal. You can go wherever, where you like, and the prince will not mind. The minister even suggested the criminal that wherever he want to run away, he could run away. The minister told the criminal that the prince wouldn't mind. ರಾಜ ನಿನಗೇನು ಅನ್ನೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ನೀನು ಹೇಳ್ಬೇಕಲ್ಲಿ ನಿರಾತಂಕವಾಗಿ ಓಡಿ ಹೋಗಬಹುದು, ಹೋಗು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಆ ಅಪರಾಧಿಗೆ the minister suggested. I dare say the prince would not mind, replied the man, but I have nowhere to go. Now, the criminal's turn has come to be spoken. Till now, the criminal had not opened his mouth. Now he had got a chance to be spoken, so he says, even I dare to say the prince would not mind. I dare the prince would not mind, say the criminal. He said, ನಾನು ಅಗದಿ ಧೈರ್ಯದಿಂದ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ, ರಾಜ ಏನು ತಪ್ಪು ತಿಳ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ. But he said, I have nowhere to go. He said he had nowhere to be gone. Why? The reasons he explains in the given paragraph. What can I do? He asked the minister what he could do. You have ruined my character by your sentence, and people will turn their back on me. The criminal said, the ministers and the kinglet had ruined, spoiled. The criminal told the minister that they had spoiled his character by their life imprisonment sentence and the death sentence. So if he goes out, the people would start turning their back by calling him as what? The criminal. The same he told to the minister. Besides, I have got out of the way of working. He told the minister that apart from that, he even have got out of the way of working. ಖಾಲಿ ಕೂತು ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡೋದನ್ನೇ ನನಗೇನಾಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟೈತಿ, ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸ್ ಹೋಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟೈತಿ. The criminal is talking this with the ministers. You have treated me badly. The criminal told the ministers that they had treated him very badly. It is not fair. The thing which had been done to him was not fair, said he. In the first place, when once you sentenced me to death, you ought to have executed me. But you did not do it. In the beginning, when the ministers had sentenced him the death sentence, they ought to, should or must. The meaning of ought to is should or must. When they have given him the death sentence, they must have to execute him. But they did not execute. Execute, kill. ಫಸ್ಟಿಗೆ ನೀವು ನನಗೆ ಮರಣದಂಡನೆ ಶಿಕ್ಷೆಯನ್ನು ವಿಧಿಸಿದ್ರಿ, ಆವಾಗಲೇ ನೀವು ನಾನು ಕೊಂದು ಬಿಡಬೇಕಾಗಿತ್ತು. You did not do that, said he and continued. I did not complain about that. He told he did not even complain Later the ministers, what they did? They changed his sentence to life imprisonment sentence. Then also he did not say anything. And they kept a guard to guard him. And suddenly they dismissed the guard after 1 year. The man had to fetch his food from the palace kitchen. Then also the man did not complain anything to the kinglet, not even to the ministers. Again I did not complain. So he did not complain. But now you actually want me to go away. I can't agree to that. Criminal told the minister that now they want him to be run away. He said openly, he said he couldn't run away. You may do as you like, but I won't go away. He told the minister that whatever they wanted to do, let them do. He wouldn't get away from the cellar. What was to be done? Again the problem had arisen. Again what the ministers they had to do? Let us see what they do. Once more the council was summoned. Again the council was summoned. Again the meeting had been called. What course could they adopt? What course here they would have adopted? Let us see through the next lines. The man would not go. Therefore, totally in a dilemma to be concluded the matter of the man's. They assembled and told to each other that the man was not ready to get away from the locker. They reflected and considered. The same words they reflected, talked with each other, and they thought. The only way to get rid of him was to offer him a pension. Now, they decided somehow to get rid from that criminal. The thought which came in them was to offer what? The pension for the not government servant but for whom? The criminal. Have you heard such kind of offer anywhere else? Nowhere. So the title is what? To tear. Now the ministers assembled and thought what to be done on the matter of the man's and decided to offer the man what? The pension. Usually in our country we get pension if we are government servants. But here he was a murderer, committed a murder. As the kinglet of Monaco found too dear to keep him, he was being offered what? The pension. Let us see which kind of pension they decide to offer him. And so they reported to the prince. The same words were being reported to the prince. There is nothing else for it, said they. Except offering pension, they had no other solution to get rid away from the criminal. They suggested, we must get rid of him somehow. They suggested the king that somehow they have to get rid of the criminal. Get rid somehow, throw away the matter. ignore, neglect, conclude. These are all meanings would be suitable for getting rid from oneself or something. The sum fixed was 600 francs, and this was announced to the prisoner. Now, the sum to pay as pension was fixed. The sum fixed by the kingdom is 600 francs. How much? 600 francs pension. They decided to give the criminal in the form of pension, which will be asked for 1 mark. What was the pension fixed by Monaco to the criminal? Anta prashne barutte. So 600 francs should be your answer. And the same thing they informed to whom? They informed to the prisoner. Criminal ಗೆ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು 600 pension will be given to you. You must run away from the locker. Let us see what he does. Well, said he, I don't mind so long as you undertake to pay it regularly. Now the criminal became very happy because committed a murder. Instead of getting the punishment, he was getting what? The pension. He would be in the heavens. So he said, he agreed and said they must have to pay his pension regularly without fail. If they pay it regularly, he said he wouldn't mind. On that condition, I am willing to go. If the pension is paid regularly, he would go away from the cellar, he told the ministers. Now let us see next paragraph what happens. So the matter was settled. So somehow the matter was being settled. He received 1/3 of his annuity in advance and left the king's dominions. Now what he did? He received what? 1/3 of his annuity. Annuity is annual pension. 600 francs was his annual pension. From 600, what he did? He received 1/3. So 200 francs he received from the kingdom and left the kingdom. It was only a quarter of an hour by rail, and he emigrated and settled just across the frontier, where he bought a bit of land and started market gardening, and now lives comfortably. After getting 200 francs, he left the king's dominions and the kingdom, and it was only quarter of an hour by rail. Andra rail hidilikke it was only quarter of an hour. Is an important word. Last year this question was asked. How much time it was needed to the criminal to reach the rail? Anta kelidru. Quarter of an hour should be the answer. So it was quarter of an hour by the rail. So the criminal reached the railway station, caught a train and emigrated from Monaco Kingdom and settled just across the frontier. he settled just across the Monaco kingdoms. Frontier, boundary we say. Boundary andra ಗಡಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ ನಾವು. ಆ ಮೊನಾಕೋದ ಎಕ್ಸಾಕ್ಟ್ ಅಪೋಸಿಟ್ ಗಡಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಅವನು ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಶುರು ಮಾಡ್ದ, ವಾಸ ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಶುರು ಮಾಡ್ದ. He bought land, a bit of land across the frontier of Monaco and started market gardening. Business ಶುರು ಮಾಡಿದ. 200 francs he had taken from Monaco kingdom. With that money he bought a bit of land. In that land he started market gardening and started living comfortably thereafter. See how lucky he is. He always goes at the proper time to draw his pension. He had never forgotten to withdraw his pension from Monaco kingdom. Every year without fail to collect his annuity, he would go to Monaco. Having received it, he goes to the gaming tables, stakes 2 or 3 francs, sometimes wins and sometimes loses, and then returns home. He lived peaceably and well. After receiving his annuity, annual pension, he even would have gone to gaming house. I hope you all remember the gaming house which he had, which the kinglet of Monaco he had, from which he was getting the special revenue. There the criminal would go and would stake. Stake means bet, waging money to see the luck. So he would bet 1 or 2 francs, 2 or 3 francs. Sometimes he would have win, sometimes he would have lost. He would have enjoyed the roulette game and would have returned to his dwelling and lived peaceably and well, being a murderer. This is how it became too dear for the kingdom of Monaco to punish the criminal. In last paragraph, let us see what it is given. It is a good thing that he did not commit his crime in a country where they do not grudge expense to cut a man's head off or to keep him in prison for lying. In the last paragraph, it is given that it is good that the criminal committed murder in Monaco. He did not commit murder in other country where they do not care. They do not care to cut off the criminal's head or throw the criminal in the cellar for lifetime. If such country would be there, he would have not lived comfortably. This is what the lesson 2 dear is. I hope you all enjoy. In our next class, we will see the grammar part. See you in next class.